I gave you an assignment when we ended last week. Do you remember what the assignment was? Do you remember what the assignment was? I asked all of you if you could come with the articles that you downloaded for your first assignment, and and then tell me, you share it, and we look through it, and you let me know whether in which category of research it falls. Do you remember?
Yes.
Okay, so who shall we begin with? Brian, shall we begin with you? Can you share with us your article?
Wait, my article on AI?
The one that you used for your assignment, was it AI?
Wait, is this the one that you gave us the other weeks back or
Yes,
last week?
the very first one I gave you.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Let me see where.
Brian, can you share with us your article?
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Let's start with the title.
So my title was about the acceleration growth of artificial intelligence in a new Moore's law for intelligence.
Which is the article itself? The very article itself.
And it's this one. Yeah.
Is that, let me see. Is that an article?
Yeah, this is the article I searched.
but it's not a research article.
It's not?
No. Can you scroll up? This is not a research article. It's a published article in an online platform, but it's not a research article. I think I showed you what a research article is and the sources we normally get from Google Scholar or from a published article, which we can either we can access them from the e-resources, but this is not a research article.
Oh.
Is there someone who can share with us a research article that they used for their assignment? Who used a research article? I remember I showed you what a research article is. The source, I even showed you Google Scholar. I said you can use the library e-resources. You're at UMU directly. You can access anyone in the library. And I gave you an extra week to do this. Abene, do you have a researched article from a scholarly source?
Madam, you want a reference or an actual article?
The article itself, because you would have downloaded it. Okay, let's do this. Christine, I think,
Yes,
how many are
madam.
you in this class?
Around 12, 13.
12 or 13. So you can approximately make about 3 groups. Not so?
Yes.
Okay. Now, create those 3 groups. I think you can comfortably create your own groups, and we are going to start doing 2 group assignments. But while we're doing those 2 group assignments, I will have consultation with each one of you as you carry out those assignments. So we are going to have days when I meet the group online. So I would like you to create those groups. Christine, if the class can create them, if you can send them to me, preferably within this week. And let us say by Friday. I'll input them in Moodle,
Madam.
but we can also have a day when I meet each one of you during the week. Okay? The group can pick a day. Okay? The group
Okay.
can pick a day and a convenient time. If during the day you have class, then we can meet probably in the evening. Maybe from about 5 p.m. we meet for about an hour. From 5 p.m. So that means from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. we meet and we do these assignments. We carry out these assignments together. When we say
Alright.
a scholarly research article, that's exactly what we mean. You can't pull out something else. Okay? And I had mentioned this earlier. I remember some people had done this and I pointed it out that it's not on a blog, it's not on a website. It has to be a scholarly research article. And I showed you what it was. And I gave you more time to read
Madam.
it. Yeah?
Let me look for mine and I present it.
Thank
I'm
you.
still looking for mine. Just give me some minutes. I look for mine, then I'll present mine
Okay, that would be good.
because it's in my phone.
So we shall have that time. So each group pick a day. Okay, it can be Monday in the evening, Tuesday, it can be Wednesday. If I'm busy on that particular day, I'll mention it. But let's make sure that we have this, we meet. So let's wait for Kusima to share with us.
Madam,
Yes, please.
I've got it. So let me try to share the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Share. Oh my God, how do you share? Oh my God.
On your screen, do you see something? The page that you want to
Yeah,
share
but
is
I'm using my phone. I'm using my phone. This yeah. So let me
you
look
see
for.
something that says share screen on the
Yes.
phone? Okay,
Yes.
click on that.
Mm-hmm.
Then do you see the window which has that particular article open?
Okay, let me look for the file name because they're telling me to look for the file name. Okay, hold on. Madam,
Yes, please.
this is the one I have.
Okay. It's about cloud computing adoption in
Yes.
small and medium enterprises. A
Yes.
systematic literature review and directions for future research.
Mm.
Let us look at the abstract. Is there a way you can enlarge in this screen?
I'm sorry.
Okay. It says the systematic literature review of the current state. So this person collected data by simply reviewing literature. First, the systematic literature review of the current state of cloud computing adoption. The current state of the current state of cloud computing adoption. When you read that, what do you think? I'm asking everyone, not just Kusima. Now, first of all, I want all of you to note that this came from the International Journal of Business and Society. It mentions the volume 23, number 1, and it's a publication of 2022. Okay? So that is a typical scholarly article. So it looks at the systematic review. It's a systematic literature review, which means they collected all their data from literature review to publish this data. Look at the current state of cloud computing adoption. What do they mean by current? First of all, the current state, we know they are researching what is happening right now. Okay? So this is what we call a horizontal research. It's looking at now. The current state. It's trying to give us a description of the current state of cloud computing adoption. What do they mean by cloud computing? Do we know what cloud computing means? We are ICT students, so we should know. We should know what cloud computing is. Where this cloud computing has nothing to do with research, it has everything to do with IT. So we know what cloud computing is. Do we?
Yes, madam.
I'm going to assume we know. Then we want to look at adoption. So we know what adoption means. That means when a particular type of technology is applied in a certain context, that people actually take it on and begin to use it. For example, Zoom was introduced into Uganda Martyrs University in 2020. Actually, before that, it had been used by some lecturers, but it became something heavily used during the lockdown. So the fact that people are using it, we are using it right now, and I'm sure the other lecturers, we have recordings of this, we have trainings, meaning there is adoption. Yeah. So we're looking at the current state of cloud computing adoption in small and medium enterprises, with the main objective of providing insight into data analysis techniques. The main objective is of providing insight into data analysis techniques. Okay, data analysis techniques. I think of looking at adoption. Let's continue. Let's understand. CC services. CC means cloud computing services being investigated and further assessing. It's a bit small. See, I can't see. And further assessing studies and their associated theories. Sorry. Is it possible to put it horizontal? To make the profile horizontal than portrait?
Actually, don't know how.
Yeah, so for the phone, I'm also not sure. I was trying to see if I can get Zoom on here, and I see if I can. I think that's better. So it says, with the main objective of providing insights into data analysis, CC services being investigated and further assessing studies and their associated theories frameworks. So it says, okay, let's try to understand, because it's a long sentence. It's looking at the current state of cloud computing adoption in SMEs, with the main objective of providing its insight into data analysis techniques. Providing insight into data, which means they are studying studies which have been done. They're looking at studies which have been done on cloud computing currently. The main objective is to look to see how they analyze the data that they collected. CC services being investigated and further assessing studies and their associated theories/frameworks. So sometimes when someone is doing research, they use a particular theory or framework, publication trends and outlets, geographical distribution, and most important, adoption factors over 10 years. So we know they are looking, this particular study, they are reviewing literature on the current state of cloud computing adoption. And in this, they are going to look at data analysis. So what data analysis techniques were being used? They are looking at the theories and frameworks they used in carrying out these studies. Publication trends, that means how many times studies were being done, in which journals did these studies come from, geographical distribution, where were the studies done? Were they done in Uganda? Were they done in the US? Were they done in Europe? From which countries and which continents? And they said most important, they want to look at adoption factors, things that affected adoption or that influenced or de-influenced adoption over 10 years. So they are looking from 2011 to 2020. Okay? So they are basically looking, it's basically a descriptive research. I can already tell it's a descriptive research, and they are looking at specific variables. They are looking at data analysis techniques. Do we know what data analysis means? Do we know what data analysis means?
No.
Okay. When you carry out research, you'll have a research question. So you'll say, like these ones, they have a research question of what is the current state of cloud computing in SMEs. And they say they want to find out about this from literature review. So their methodology is basically searching online databases. Yeah. So they consulted online databases and they picked out a total of 76 articles from 2011 to 2020. Okay. So when they collected this data, they carried out analysis of the data. So for example, for you, you might say, I want to find out, I want to evaluate an AI system that I've implemented in a particular organization. So I design the data, the system, I implement it in the organization. Then I carry out interviews, I give questionnaires, I observe. So all of that, I collect data. So when I collect all this data from interviews, from questionnaires, from observation, from documents, I will have to analyze it. Okay? That, for example, the questionnaires, I will get all the responses, put them in maybe in SPSS or in an Excel sheet, and then I'll find out how many people said no to this question, how many people said yes. What does that mean? That is carrying out data analysis. How many, when I carried out interviews, when I asked this question, maybe I asked a question of, what do you think about the AI system? All of them say, maybe 60, some people, one person said, well, I don't have much to think about it because I haven't had time. So I'll say, probably this system needs to be given more time for people to gain a perception of it. Another person will say, I find it very good. I found it exciting. I said, because it's probably a new system, it can bring about motivation in doing work. When I'm doing this, I'm carrying out data analysis. The data I collected, I'm trying to make meaning out of it so I can answer the question I first put out. What effect does AI have on marketing? Okay, that was my research question. So the data analysis is the data I collect. So they want to find out the people who carried out research on cloud computing adoption. What data analysis techniques did they find out? Did they use? Did they use qualitative techniques? They use quantitative techniques. Did they use the case study? They look at only a particular thing. What did they use? What techniques did they use? So they want to find out, as far as cloud computing studies that have been done, what data analysis techniques were used. Okay. Then these studies, as they were investigated, what theories and frameworks did they use? Now, for us in undergraduate level, most likely we won't go as far as using theories and frameworks, but at master's level, that happens. So for example, someone who says they're going to look at adoption, they will say, I want to use TAM theory. TAM is a technology adoption model, and there are many others. So what theories and frameworks were used? Publication trends. How many publications have come out? Who focuses more on using TAM? Who focuses more on using qualitative? Things like that. What outlets, meaning what journals are really focused on cloud computing? Geographical distribution. Where were these studies done? Those are the variables that they are looking at. Already I can tell this research is descriptive in nature. Okay? Then they say 6 databases were consulted with 76 articles. The findings indicate that partial least squares, structural equation modeling, and interpretive analysis were the most frequently used quantitative and qualitative data analysis techniques. Okay? This one I don't know it very well, but I do know interpretative analysis because I have my experience is more on the qualitative side. But this method is most likely quantitative in nature. I'm sure by now you know what quantitative and qualitative is. We had that lecture, and you should know what it is. So I won't repeat it. If you don't know, I would advise that you go back. In both our group assignments, these things will come out. If you don't understand them, it's going to be hard for you. They said generic cloud computing services were investigated more than specific cloud computing business application. The number of publications has fluctuated over the last decade, and the vast majority did not incorporate any underlying theory. So no theories were used in any of these studies. Then they talk about the journals that they used. The study contributes to CC research by providing deeper insight into all those variables that we talked about. So already we can tell what it used. Kusima, in this article, is there any part which talks about methodology or research design?
Let me check because I didn't read everything.
Okay, you can just scroll down and we see. Let's scroll down and we see slowly. So here it talks about the geographical distribution, conclusions, and future direction. Okay. More or less, I can tell that this research was quantitative in nature because it was speaking on specific variables, but it is descriptive. It is descriptive in it's a descriptive research. It's providing a description of where the current state of cloud computing research is at the moment. Yeah, it's giving a description with very specific variables. And when we have very specific variables, a methodology. Let's go to methodology. I've just seen a title saying methodology introduction. Go down. Scroll down. Yeah, so introduction, next. After introduction is what? Literature review, methodology. This paper adopts a systematic literature review. A systematic literature review is a reproducible and straightforward method of identifying and assessing and synthesizing all available research by academics, practitioners, and researchers on a specific topic domain, area of interest. So we've not talked about this methodology. Most likely none of you will use it, but it's a methodology that exists. This proposed research, they want to describe what is the current state of research of cloud computing. So it makes sense to use systematic literature review. Yeah. So to conduct a review, we followed the 8-step systematic literature review process of Zia and Watson. They even describe the methodology, the steps of formulate the problem, develop and validate the review protocol, search literature, screen for inclusion, assess quality, extract data, analyze, report findings. They give a description. So one, when you're talking about your methodology for yourself, as you're doing in your report, let's, for example, your chapter 3 will be about methodology. We expect to see, number one, your research approach, your research design. So the research design would include the research methods you're using. These people clearly indicate they use systematic literature review. So what research method are you using? And they go ahead to describe the steps. Okay? So in these steps, they said, step 1, this review motivated by, they describe what they did in step 1. So we also expect you to describe what you did in step 1, okay? Most likely, most of you are going to use design science. So in step 1 of design science, what did you do, okay? So those are things that when I ask you, get published articles. Why? Because they will already give you an insight on how you're going to write your work. This paper already tells you how you write your chapter 3. You should tell us what your research method is. What steps did you follow? What are the steps of that method? And what did you do in each step? So these ones are already telling us. Now, we already know, I can already tell that this research was quantitative in nature because they had specific variables they were looking at. When we are dealing with qualitative research, we are discovering the variables. In quantitative research, we already have the variables. So, and then 2, it is descriptive in nature because it is describing the current state of affairs. If you go back to our lecture we had last week, we talked about what a descriptive research is. It is describing the current state of affairs regarding a specific topic. Okay? So this is typically a descriptive research, and it is quantitative in nature. Why? Because we have specific variables we're dealing with. Thank you, Kusima. I think we can stop here. Thank you, Kusima, for, first of all, taking an effort and getting a published article. Okay?
Do you want my...
No, that one is okay. I'm going to grade it at a different time. I just wanted the published article.
Okay, madam.
Okay. So I hope everyone has taken note of what we are talking about, what we were talking about last week. I remember I also asked you to find out what basic research is and applied research. And I said, then bring it, then also the same, I also related it to conceptual research and empirical research. I don't know if you had time to find out these things. Did we find them out? Did we find out what basic research is versus applied research? If no, I'm going to leave it at that. If we find it in our final exam, and it is not expecting to just to define it, but give a description of a particular research, then you will know what to answer. So let us come to research philosophies and what follows. Do you all see my screen?
Madam.
Yes, please.
Okay, what I researched, I didn't see empirical research more, but I actually, okay, I found out what basic and applied research are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So should I read it for you?
Please,
or-
please do.
So basic research is defined as a systematic study directed toward greater knowledge or understanding of the fundamental aspects of phenomena and observable facts without specific applications towards processes or products in mind. Hope you get me.
Yes.
Then applied research.
I think we've
Sorry.
lost. Yes.
Okay, empirical research. Okay, empirical research is defined as any research where conclusions of any study is strictly drawn oh my god, I don't know this word. Something like that. Empirical evidence, and therefore it's verified evidence. You understand? So
Yes.
empirical research can be gathered using quantitative market research and qualitative market research methods.
Okay. Now I would ask you, Kusima, where would you place the article of cloud computing? Would it be in empirical research or basic research?
Empirical research.
It should, yes, thank you. It is empirical research. An example of basic research I would give you is go and find out about the theory of evolution. I forget that man's name. Last time I told you. What was that man's name? His theory of, I forget it, but look at that theory of evolution. And just read about it. This man came up with the theory of evolution by observing the environment, and he said that human beings came from apes. You've heard of that research, yeah? You've heard of that research that human beings came from apes? I'm sure you've heard of it. It's not new.
Yes, madam, we had.
Pardon? Have you heard of it?
Yes, personally, I had.
You've heard of it, eh? Now, here's my question. Is there any evidence that shows that human beings came from apes?
There's no evidence.
There is no evidence. So it is a thought he had. Yeah? There is evidence that there is interspecies evolution. For example, the Batoro that were here 100 years ago are not the same that are here now. We have evolved over time. Okay? The Ugandans that were here 200 years ago are not the Ugandans that were there that are here now, are not the Ugandans. There's definitely interspecies evolution. But for one species to become another species, there's no evidence of that. It is a thinking. So that is a typical of basic research where you conceptualize, come up with ideas, with methods. It's not necessarily something that solves a current or answers a current problem. Okay? So that is typical. And if you go back and find out, look at conceptual research and empirical research, there's a big relationship between the two, between these categories. Okay? So I think we have a basic idea now. Now, can we look at research philosophies? Can you all see my screen? I hope you can all see my screen.
We can all see it.
Okay, I'm going to assume yes. Now, we specifically want to focus on research philosophies, which kind of goes back to the research types we've been talking about. They are very much related. These topics are related. Briefly, we shall touch on research strategies, but these are not the main thing we are focusing on. The reason why we want to talk about it briefly is because they are related. All of these are related to research strategies. And eventually, they're also related to data collection methods. Okay? So let us look at these research philosophies. Now, we want to think of the onion. There's what we call the research process onion. And sometimes you see students actually writing about it in their dissertations, but they are not necessarily needed. What we need to see is that you've understood it and it's reflected in your methodology chapter. That in your research design, you can clearly see that your research is either leaning towards qualitative or quantitative. You've chosen this research method because it best answers your research question. When you select your data collection methods, they are in line with your research design. Okay? So we start with the research onion basically begins with us understanding what type of research is this. Is my research descriptive in nature? Is it qualitative in nature? This is where we're answering what type of research is my research going to be. Of course, everything stems from what is my research problem? What is my research question? How am I going to approach this question? Am I going to focus on quantity or quality? What is it? So this leads to the research philosophy you intend to follow. Yeah? We have two basic types of research philosophies: positivism and phenomenology. We are going to introduce another one, realism, later, but let us understand these two. Okay? Positivism. So here the researcher takes an objective, becomes an objective analyst. Yeah? Let us go back to Sima's paper, where these researchers decided to give a description of the current state of research in cloud computing. They visited 76 online journals, found out what research has been done on cloud computing adoption in SMEs. Cloud computing adoption in SMEs. What research has been done? And they had very specific objectives. What data analysis was done? What data analysis technique was done? What theories were used? What was the trend? Meaning, what was the trend? Meaning they wanted to see, was it a consistent flow between 2011 to 2020? Was there a consistent flow? And like they reported, there was fluctuation, meaning at one point there was a lot of research, and then the research went down, then it went like that. They gave a trend. They also wanted to find out the geographical scope, geographical distribution. Where was this research being done? Meaning it was a very much objective analysis. Very objective analysis with very specific variables. Now, if they wanted to find out adoption, current research, and they wanted to find out the feeling behind that, what motivated each of these people to carry out this research? What was the motivation for people carrying out cloud computing? That would be more on the It is not objective, it's subjective. What was the feeling behind it? Why did these people do it? What motivated them? The underlying feeling behind it. But this was very objective. What type of technique was used? Where was this research done? What theory was used? Was this research qualitative or quantitative? Very objective, yeah? You're working with an observable social reality. Working with an observable social reality. When we pick very specific variables, sort of law-like, very specific variables, I want to study. The researcher is independent and is neither affected nor is affected by the subject of the research. When somebody decides, I'm going to use, these are the specific variables I'm going to use, and the result is what I'll report. But when I say things like, I want to find out the motivation behind this. Why did these people do this research? What was the feeling behind it? I'm going beyond something objective. I'm making it subjective. Highly structured methodology. Quantifiable observations. Once you see quantifiable observations, when we say, how many people used this type of data analysis techniques? How many people used this one? Geographical distribution. How many were done in the United States of America? How many were done in Europe? How many were done in Africa? How many were done in Asia? Okay? So this is using a positivism research philosophy. So we can already tell where Kusima's paper was lying. The other is interpretivism, where we look at a situation and we say things are not only complex, they are unique. If the researchers who did Kusima's paper had said, let us go and interview each of these people who did this research. We go and do a systematic literature review, but we go and interview each of the people who did this research. What was the motivation for doing this research? Meaning they're saying there is something maybe that motivated them that was unique. And maybe they would have found out the first group of researchers, for them, it was about their country. Maybe the organization which I came from, we failed to adopt cloud computing. There was a quarrel about this. Meaning we're saying we're not just going to look at the method they used, but what was the unique nature of why each of these researchers? What was the unique nature? I decided to go and sit down and interview. What was the unique nature? What was it that motivated you? Another person would have said, my country was in war, but the economy had to continue, so I had to think of ways. So you're getting the unique context for each person. Okay? So you're discovering the details. Remember when we talked about qualitative research? We said it's about quality, not quantity. We're not talking about how many, but the quality. What is the unique nature? And we report back the unique nature of each researcher. The detailed situation of each, that's why we call it a phenomenology, where that interpretivism, where we want to report the unique nature of each. So imagine also if you think about it two ways. Let us say we apply AI as part of e-learning, the e-learning systems of different universities. Okay? We apply AI. Let me pull up a white screen, and here I'm going to ask for everyone's participation. Sorry, my mouse is a little bit erratic. We all know what AI is. So imagine we have an AI application X. Okay, let me first clear that. I don't want us to assume it. Let me first clear all drawings. So let's say we have AI, we have an AI application. Let's call it Z. Okay. We get several universities in Uganda. Can we name some universities? Let's get everyone's participation. Name some universities in Uganda.
Makerere University.
So let's call it, they normally refer to it as MOOC. Let's say there's MOOC, then there's MOOC, MOOBS. Another university.
ISBAT.
Which one?
ISBAT.
ISBAT. Another university.
UCU.
UCU. Another one. You can say Mbarara. We can say Umu, include Umu. Any other?
KIU.
Chambogo, KIU. Chambogo, KIU. Now let us assume all of them have e-learning and we apply this AI system in each. Now, let us say we have a positivist philosophical view. We want to look at adoption. Someone designs it, applies it in each of these. If we're taking a positivist and want to look at adoption. We want to look at adoption. First of all, what would we need to, if we are taking a positivist, what would we need to first of all have? What would we need?
Maybe marketing.
Marketing what? Remember, we are researchers. We are now thinking as researchers. Let's think as researchers. Positivist philosophical viewpoint. We're being objective. We want to look at adoption. We want to study adoption in each of these universities. What would we need? We've just talked about it. If we're taking a positive, remember objective and be an objective analyst. We would first of all need variables which help us. Objective analyst, we would need variables. We need variables which help us measure adoption. Variables to measure. Adoption. Okay, now you can find out what variables help us measure adoption. If you look at the term theory, it will tell you, look at things like you ask users what is ease of use. You look at ease of use and usability. Yeah, they are questions which help you measure those. So you'd ask, if you go to Makerere, from Makerere, you say how many students at Makerere, they are this amount, and then you say maybe 100 students will answer. MOOBS, how many? Maybe 150 would help to answer. ISBAT, how many? There, this number, maybe this number. Makerere, all those you ask. This would be you being an objective analyst, asking on ease of use, and usability. This is ease of use. Then ease of use is how easy is it to use this thing? Is it user friendly? Then the other would be, is it useful? Yeah, is it useful? There's ease of use. For example, I might say WhatsApp is very easy to use, but is it actually useful? So those would be there would be questions I would ask based on ease of use and usefulness. So ease of use would be like it's very easy for me to log in. It's very easy for me to find the future I want. It's very easy for me to upload an assignment or to find my answer. Usefulness, I found it useful when I was doing an assignment. I found it useful when I was when I had a question. I found it useful when I was in class. Things like those would be the questions you'd ask. So that would be an objective analyst. This would be the positivist philosophy. This would be a positivist philosophical point of view. In other words, the quantitative, where you're measuring. Okay? Now, let us say, let me make first clear again. So we have the same AIZ in the same universities, MOOBS, MOOC, ISBAT. Do I remember all of them? UCU, UMU, Mbarara, did I mention any other? Chambogo? And what was the other one? What was the last one? I can't remember, but
KIU.
Sorry, KIU. So if we are doing an interpretivist point of view, remember this one is now leaning interpretivist. This one is leaning towards qualitative research. Qualitative. We're saying each context is unique. Each social reality is unique. MOOBS is unique. MOOC is unique. ISBAT is unique. So the interpretivist said, me, I don't want to go the positivist way. For me, just to ask ease of use and usefulness is not enough. They say, no, it's not enough. The interpretivist says each context is unique. So I want to go to each university and talk to students individually. Now, of course, here, if you're taking the interpretivist point of view, you're not going to go and interview 100 students. That's not possible. For the positivist, the person will go and give a questionnaire, the same questionnaire to everyone. And they probably finds a group of people, they all sit down, answer the questions, or they send them by email, you respond, send back. But the interpretivist says, no, each situation is unique. I will go to MOOBS. Maybe in MOOBS, I will talk to 5 students only. And I ask them, maybe I spend time with them from the time the AI is applied. Before it is applied and after, I spend time with them, I observe. I sit with them, I sit with them in class. Probably I sit with them for about maybe 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, or not even 2 weeks is too little. I can even spend a whole month with them. As I observe as they are using the system, I talk to them. Each time I talk to them, how are you finding this thing? And the person tells, Banange, today, Banange, I'm not in the mood of studies because me, first of all, I have to borrow a phone. Me, I don't have money. My parents don't have money. We are from deep there in Kienjojo, so for me, I don't have a phone. Now people are telling me I have to use this thing. I have never used things like this. I don't have a smartphone. I have never owned a phone. Then I go to MOOC, the same thing. Now, even at this point, you can already see with the interpretivist point of view, you may not even go to all these universities. You'll say, I'll go to MOOBS, I'll go to UCU, and I'll go to KIU only. For a period of 1 month, I sit with these 3 or 5 students. I sit and I observe and I talk to them. And all of that time, whatever I'm picking is data. The frustrations they have. This one, I don't have a phone. Today, me, I don't have money. In other words, you're looking at the social constructs. You're looking at the complex, unique experience of each student. Now, in this time, the researcher who's using interpretivist may find out that the economic social background of a student matters if you're to have adoption of a system like this. If you have a person who doesn't have a phone, it's going to affect. Okay? Maybe in UCU, you find somebody for whom religion matters. And the person says, this AI system, it talks about artificial intelligence. What does this mean in terms of God? Because intelligence is given by God. But now what does this mean? How does this affect my faith? Then you find a person's unique religious context affects adoption. That me, I'm very skeptical about using this thing, my religion. Today we had the scripture union and we had fellowship and for me, I felt the Holy Spirit convict me. We talked about this. I am torn. So you find this researcher finds another experience. Then you find in Chambogo a student who says, when this system came, my goodness, it helped me. You know me, I can't access the library. In the library, there are so many people, there's no space to sit, but this AI system really, really helped me. I had an assignment. Then you find in a public university where a student has limited access, it's really supportive. So you see now it becomes about quality, not quantity. It's about looking at the unique social setup. I don't know if what the picture I'm trying to paint for you, does it give you a proper? I don't know if I make sense. Do you have any question? Is there any question? There's complete silence. Were you hearing me or no? Are we confused anywhere? Do you have any question? I'm going to assume you all hear me. So I'm going back to our lecture slide. And I hope you all understood what we talked, the difference between positivism and interpretivism. In the middle of this, we have realism. It says reality exists independent of human thoughts and beliefs. Yeah. So realism tries to sit between positivism and interpretivism. It says where social objects or phenomena, external to or independent of individuals, affect the way people perceive the world, whether they are aware of them or not. Now, because you're not responding, I'm going to ask you to go and research about realism and come back next week and report back about realism. And preferably give an example. In the three groups you'd have, each of you in your three groups, give an example of that. This will be part of the grading you receive. Give an example of realism in a published research article, okay? Preferably in the field of IT. Now, when we come from the research philosophies, we come to research approaches, where we have two types, deductive and inductive. Now, by the time we've looked at positivism and interpretivism, we know that these approaches depend. So they also depend on whether something is quantitative or qualitative. You're all very quiet. I really hope you're picking something, okay? So what is deducing or deductive, where something is deductive in nature? And has any of you ever watched Sherlock Holmes?
Madam, the movie?
Yes, the movie.
Yeah, I think it had 3 parts.
Okay. Did you ever hear what Sherlock Holmes, the method he uses to come to arrive at a conclusion?
I can't tell, but I think okay. What I remember, he used to plan his he has strategies
Mm-hmm.
before he done his work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can remember.
Yeah. You remember he
Because
would
whenever he was going to fight with someone, he had to first discover what has her weakness or his weakness,
Uh-huh.
and use that weakness to defeat that person.
Okay. He would basically pick certain variables. For example, you've mentioned weakness. Yeah. That this is this person's weakness. So if I start with this blow, he will come back at me with this blow. In other situations, Gilbert, you'd see, he would observe somebody, the person walks in a room and he says, this person, when he walked in, his eyes looked tired, his probably he was slumped, he was this, he was that. This probably means this person had a poor night's sleep. You know, something like that. He would observe certain variables, not so Gilbert, eh? And then comes to a conclusion. Okay? So this is typically of type of this is indicative of deductive type of reasoning. That is deductive reasoning. It's not research, but reasoning. Now, meaning there is a certain assumption that is made, that Sherlock Holmes would make, an assumption which we refer to as a hypothesis. Take an example. We've been talking about adoption of ICT. There is an assumption that was made by the people who developed term theory. The assumption is, they say, women will adopt a system if they find it easy to use, and men will adopt a system if they find it useful. That is a hypothesis. And this hypothesis comes from a theory. Okay? Now, like I said, most of you will not use a theory at undergraduate level. We don't expect this. And I doubt, I hope if one of you decides to do this type of research, it would be nice, but I doubt very much that we shall follow this, but it's good to understand that this kind of thing exists. So in deductive research, we have a hypothesis. It's an operational term, like I've just given you one. Women will find it easy to use, will adopt a system if they find it easy to use, and men will adopt it if they find it useful. So imagine the example I gave you of the universities, where you're looking at adoption of a certain system, and you say you decide, I'm not just going to ask on ease of use, I'm going to look at both the female and the male. I'm going to divide the responses between female and male. How many of the women say they have adopted it because they found it easy to use? Things like that. Or how many of the women have said no? Then I conclude, this application may not be adopted because less women find it easier to use. That kind of thing. Then you test the hypothesis. So when you're carrying out the research, you're carrying out an experiment or empirical inquiry. Yeah. You examine the outcome and you come up with a conclusion. The conclusion can either confirm your hypothesis or modify it. Yeah. Can either confirm it or modify it. Here in the slides, you have an example of absenteeism. I'm not going to go through it because we have talked about it already in the example, but I would ask you to go back and read further on it. Yeah. So stages of, then we come to inductive research. So inductive is going towards interpretivism or qualitative research. You ask yourself, you have find a specific problem. So our problem in the AI case is we have applied the system. Our problem is we want to find out if it is being adopted, and if it is not, why is it not being adopted? Why is something happening? Yeah. So you remember the stages I took you through for AI on the qualitative side. You want to make sense. When as a researcher, you went to MOOC and you found out about the student who said, for me, I come from a poor family. I don't have these smartphones other people, my colleagues have. You know something, I'm making sense. Why is there adoption? If there's no adoption, why is it not happening? So after I collect it, I make sense of it, I analyze it, and then I begin to formulate a theory. I talk about poverty, which term theory doesn't talk about. You find out the person who was using term theory couldn't find out there were students who have not adopted because of poverty. Then there are those who have not adopted because of religion. Then there are those who have adopted because of scarcity of resources. I begin to come up with a different theory or different ideas about adoption. Apart from term who just talks about ease of use and usefulness, there are other things that affect adoption. So here we have a slide which talks about the differences between the two, most of which we have talked about. One, remember in deductive, we are talking about certain scientific principles, moving from theory to data. So we normally start with a theory. We have variables, and we want to find out if there's a causal relationship between variables, okay? A variable of ease of use and adoption, usefulness and adoption, okay? So we know ease of use is a variable, usefulness is a variable. We collect data, we collect quantitative data in terms of quantity. Yeah. We apply controls controls to ensure validity. Okay, and so on and so forth. You can continue reading through. With inductive, we're looking at understanding the meaning behind why people do things. We use qualitative data, and so on and so forth. Again, I will not go into depth. I would like to ask you to read further beyond what I'm presenting to you. So which approach should I select? One, it all depends on what is my research problem. Yeah? What wealth of information is there as far as my research problem is concerned? If I'm simply looking at adoption, simply at adoption of AI, it is okay, I can start using the theories because there are lots of theories about adoption. But if I want to look at the underlying issues that affect adoption, then I may decide to go qualitative or interpretivist. Then it also depends on time. Deductive approach is the quickest. Remember I said if I had all those universities, I would simply go and either send a questionnaire via email or give a questionnaire physically, and in less than a day, I have my results. Inductive takes a bit more time because you need to sit down with people. They need to open up to you. You may take a bit more time collecting that data. Then it also depends on the risk. They say deductive approach has a lower risk, but I want to dispute that severely. I want to give you an example. When I was doing my research, one of my, when you're doing PhD research in the Netherlands, you sit in an office. So you don't sit in a classroom, unlike what we have now. So you sit in an office. So I was with there was a lady, I think by now she has her PhD. She was doing her research, and most of her data, she was dependent on questionnaires. And she sent them out on email to a group of people. And I remember one day she just told me, she said, Sheba, nobody has responded. It has been over a month. Meaning she had no data to research on, to start analyzing. She had gone through all the steps. come up with her research problem, come up with her background, literature review, methodology, everything. Now that said, now go and do the research. So she had designed a questionnaire, sent it out, and nobody responded. So there is a risk. There is a risk that, so as much as they say there is no risk, still there is a risk. With inductive research, considering time, there is a fear you may actually not find anything. Okay, you're starting, basically with inductive research, you're saying there is little known about this thing. For example, if it was AI, and we say in all literature, there is nothing much known about underlying social issues, especially in African universities, that may affect AI adoption. So I'm going out to discover. Nothing may emerge out of the data you find. Or you may find a community that refuses to jail with you and to open up and tell you their issues. Yeah, so that is there. But for me, myself, I did in my research had an inductive approach. I spent about 2 years, because it was a PhD, I spent about 2 years with a community there in India, within Nkosi sub-county. So these people really took time to open up. They got to know me and opened up. And at the end, I did get quite a bit of data. But then again, I want to say, don't fear. Your kind of research, for example, what I see at undergraduate level, somebody says, I want to build a website for a school. And most of the time, they know the school, they know the people in the school. And if you are going to evaluate if this website actually does improve marketing, you design it, implement it, then spend time with the people and talk to the head teacher. Did anyone, you talk to the IT person, were there metrics, were visits made, from which location? You get those analytics you find out from the head teacher and all those who are involved in the school, like how many new students did you get because of the school? How many parents have visited? Things like that. You have a discussion with the teachers. Has it improved the image of the school? What response do you hear from parents? So that one would be easy for you. So I don't want to scare you. Your research is at undergraduate level. So it's quite possible to do inductive type of research, yeah? So there's also the question of the audience. Who makes the research? Who will mark? So for most of the time, I find our students will go towards qualitative research, but more leaning towards realism. Qualitative leaning towards realism. So I would suggest you go and find out what realism research is, because most of your research will fall there. Okay? If you need a clear research, you ask, why is this approach important? Is it possible to combine approaches? Which approach should I adopt? These questions you need to ask yourself as a researcher, because you need to defend why you've selected a certain approach, a certain research method in relation to your research question. So have that clear in mind. So with those few points, let me look at the time. Yes. Do we have any question?
No.
No, we don't. Okay. I remember around about this time, someone asked me that if you have another lecture at 11, so we shall pick up from there. But I would like to remember all of you and Christine, create your research groups, give them to me at least by Friday. For each research group, each group that has been created, make sure you communicate to me a day when we can meet. If you're busy during the day, we can preferably meet maybe from 5 to 6. We are going to do 2 group assignments, and I want to work with you as we do these assignments. Okay? Why? I've noticed that I ask you to do something, you go back and don't do it. So I want us to get out of this class when we've actually picked something about research. Okay? So I'm going to start working with the groups. I'm assuming there are going to be about 3 groups. If you're about 12 or 13, we should have about 3 groups that come out of you. Okay? So I'm leaving the creation of groups to you. Go with those whom you're comfortable with, but also go with those who will add value to you. Don't just go with, this one is my friend, but with this friend, add value on the academic side. It's important that you ask those questions. And not undergraduate level, you don't think about these things, but it's very important. My older sister currently is enrolled at UMU. She's doing a postgraduate diploma in guiding and counseling. And she complains that she has group members. There are some group members who don't make any contribution. She ended up having to be tough on one of them. So pick group members, they are going to add an academic value, those who participate, who actually participate. Research is an interesting area. It looks scary, but it's interesting and it adds value to your thinking, your ability to think at a higher level. So I would suggest you embrace it. It's not enough for you to just program. Like I said, there are people who program without even going to university. So what's the difference between you and them? Okay? So if we can have these groups at least by Friday, and each group, please contact me and give me a time when we can meet online. I can start immediately, all the better. Is that okay?
It's okay, madam.
Okay. Do we have any question? Any question, concern? All of you are very quiet today. You're not in the moods. It's midweek. If it was Monday, we would say, but midweek. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to assume silence means consent.